This experience happened when I was 17 years old. I was particularly obsessed with motorcycles. When I had time, I would meet my friends and go off-road together. Although I was often injured, it didn't stop me from loving off-roading. One weekend, my friend asked me to go off-road with him. It had been raining for a few days, and the roads had become very muddy. I rode my motorcycle up the off-road track and headed towards a jump. I had been on this jump hundreds of times before. That day I decided to complete a jump farther than I had ever done before. As I approached the jump, I sprinted as fast as I could. A voice told me that I had to slow down. I ignored the voice and sped up. This was not the first time I had heard this voice. This voice was special to me. I was often abused by my stepmother when I was a child. Whenever I was beaten, there was always a voice comforting me. When I was in trouble, I would also hear this voice. Don't get me wrong, I'm not looking for sympathy here. This voice not only comforted me, but also warned me of impending danger. I ignored that voice. I accelerated into a sprint as I approached the jump. I suddenly felt my tires skid and I lost control of the bike. I couldn't get control of the bike before I hit the ground. I hit my head on the ground and lost consciousness. I wasn't wearing a helmet because I was confident in my skills. Now, it seems how stupid I was. My friends saw me fall and they called the emergency services. They gathered around me and watched me, and they feared I was dead. They couldn't see me move or breathe at all. Suddenly, they saw me take a deep breath and slowly open my eyes. They told me later that the whole process took about 3 minutes. I remember the moment my head fell to the ground and everything in front of me went black. Then I opened my eyes and stood up. To my shock, I saw myself lying on the ground. Then I heard that familiar voice that kept saying behind me, "Come on. We have to go." I turned around. I saw the one who had made the voice. I think it would be more appropriate to describe it as an angel. This angel looked like a 10-year-old boy, and I asked him, "Where are we going?" He said in an anxious tone, "Come on, we have to go now. The devil in the darkness is coming." Then he pointed to the distance. There was a dark spirit coming toward me, and he wanted to take me away. I had a feeling that he was sent by Satan to try to capture my soul. There was a dark cloud around him, and he was wearing a black robe, and I could not see his eyes. He represented pain and suffering. I looked at the angel floating above me, and he held out his hand for me to grasp him. The angel wore a white coat and a golden crown on his head. He began to fly upward. I looked down and saw my friend. I also saw the demon that was around my body. He looked very angry. As the angel and I flew upward, I saw the earth getting smaller and smaller. Then we went into outer space, faster and faster, until the earth disappeared. We passed so many planets, going so fast, it was like a blur. I tried to look up to see where we were traveling. It was very difficult because we were going so fast. Finally, we got there through an obstacle. It was a very dreamy place, and I felt so wonderful here. There was no heat or cold, no pain or discomfort, no hunger or thirst, no craving for anything. I had a feeling of being loved, and this place was the most perfect place you could imagine. I believe this place is heaven. The angel said, "I have to go now. There are others waiting for him." I thanked the angel for everything he had done for me. I saw 2 people to my left. They were standing on a podium. There was a book on the podium, and it was very thick. One of them looked at me and asked, why are you here?" I looked up at him. In a trembling voice I asked, "Are you saying I should go down there?" I felt that they were implying to me that hell was where I should go. They both laughed and explained to me, "Now your time has not yet come." I felt very puzzled. Then they opened the book. I saw names written all over the top of the book, and they said, "Here is the list for today, and your name is not here." Then he turned the book back many pages and said, "This is your time," and they pointed to my name. I told them, "I want to stay." They replied, "You have to go back. You are part of God's plan." I asked, "Why do I have to go back, and how will you send me back?" They said, "We will take you to God. He knows what to do." They took me to another place. Here I met God. He was sitting very high up. I saw that he was wearing a white robe. God held out his hands to me as if he were picking up a little child. He told me to sit down in front of him. His hands were very strong, yet they were the warmest hands. I slowly looked up at him. He was very tall. His hair and beard were white and I could hardly breathe. God put his hand on my head. He could see everything about me. He could see the good and bad things I had done, and he could experience what I was really feeling at that moment. He said, "Yes, you are good." He went on to say that you were part of my plan. He showed me a picture of a much more mature me with a boy in tow. I understood that the boy was my son. I was in a wheelchair and the boy was pushing me because my neck had been broken in the accident. This meant that I was paralyzed and my son had to take care of me. I asked, "Where is the boy's father? Is he dead?" God said, "He went to another place." Later, I did get married. At the age of 25, I had a son with my first husband. When my son was 2 years old, we got divorced. He left us and went to live in another city and never came back. Then God told me, "You can choose to stay, but I want you to go back." I asked, "What did you mean when you said I was part of your plan?" Then he told me about the mission. If I stayed there, God would have to change the other events associated with it to make his plan work. I told God, "If this is part of your plan, I will choose to go back for you. But if I go back, can you heal my neck? Not for me, but for my son, so he wouldn't have to take care of me. It's bad enough that his father is gone." God agreed. He told me that if I chose to go back, some of the memories I had here would not be preserved. So many of my experiences were erased from my memory. God smiled at me and said softly, "It's time to go back." I followed God through the gates of heaven and into the universe. Words cannot describe this scene. We traveled between the galaxies. It was as if I was immersed in the universe, no longer bound by time and space. As we approached the Earth, I saw it becoming clearer and clearer. I could see large areas of land and oceans. When we finally reached the Earth's atmosphere, I felt a powerful surge of heat. We passed through the clouds and approached the Earth's surface. I knew that I was about to return to my home and start a new life. It was almost an instant compared to the journey to heaven with the angels. God was about to leave when I realized that he had not fixed my neck. I said, "Wait. What about the wound on my neck?" Then God put his hand on the back of my neck. Everything was back in place. I felt the warmth of the hand. God was getting ready to leave and I noticed that my neck still hadn't fully recovered. I said, "I still feel something wrong with my neck." God said, "This scar is to remind you at all times. The consequences need to be borne by yourself, and then God went back to heaven. I opened my eyes, saw the sunlight, and I took a deep breath. Life came back into my body. My friends saw me awake and one of them asked, "Are you okay? We thought you were dead." I had wounds in many places on my body, most importantly my neck, and I felt a lot of pain. They helped me up and my motorcycle was almost scrapped. Soon the ambulance came and I was taken to the hospital. The doctors asked me some questions, some I answered and some I couldn't. They called my parents and they arrived at the hospital soon after. The examination didn't reveal anything too serious. And after a brief treatment of the wound, we went home. When I returned to the real world, I found that my ability to think was greatly enhanced. I started to re-examine my life and think about the meaning of my living. I realized that life is short and we should all cherish our time and do what we love to do. After that experience, I became more brave and determined. I started to pursue my dreams more actively. I also understood what is the real value, which is to help others and create more value. As a result, I became more concerned about the people around me, their needs, and offered my help. I also started to pay attention to social issues and look for ways that I can contribute to society. I know that even small gestures can have a positive impact. This near-death experience has had a profound impact on my life. I hope I can turn this insight into practical action and make my life more meaningful.